Salutations, listeners.
Si vas valeu.
Baller Magulis.
Nanu, nanu. Nanu, nanu.
Nanu.
Who's Nanu? Your Nanu?
No, my Nanu died years ago.
Nanu.
Thank you for tuning in. This is Three Men in a Basement, and we are the Ultra Crepidarians. My name is Colin McLeod.
Look up.
Action Jackson.
And in this podcast, we review movies, and we like to deliver to you, the listener, an average schmuck's opinion about hidden gems in the wide world of cinema. In this show, we try and target movies that are not total blockbuster smashes. We're doing no Star Wars.
No Star Wars.
No Star Wars. We also try and target ones that are not super duper obscure, not so obscure that you couldn't track it down and find it. Instead, we like to aim for that delightful sweet spot right in the middle, movies that maybe you haven't seen in a while, or maybe you wanted to see and you missed them. We like to target those, watch them, review them, and deliver to you our take on whether or not you need to track them down and watch them.
So basically what you're saying is we lift the shirt and we dig in the belly button of the cinematic...
Lint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We chew on it a little bit and let you know if it tastes good.
That is one way of putting it.
That's the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Jackson, get on board. This is the way. We're eating lint now.
All right, where's the board? I'm going to get on it.
What, gentlemen, for this, our 43rd episode?
Jesus. Yeah.
Oh, we're marching along here. What did we watch this week?
It was not Murder, She Wrote.
It was not Murder by Numbers.
It was Murder by Death.
Murder by Death.
Quite precise.
I mean, if you're going to be murdered.
By death is a good way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
It's definitive.
There's no way around it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting murdered by death.
It comes for us all.
I like the utility.
Yeah, you're not mincing words, right?
No.
It's like, oh, I got murdered by carousel. You know, maybe I made it out of that.
Right?
No, Murder by Death, you're fucking dunzo. Murder by Death, 1976 movie. This is, by a good margin, I think almost 10 years, this is the oldest movie we've ever done on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's contemporary to episode 4.
Is it?
Yeah, they both came out in... Well, no, I think episode 4 came out in 77, so this predates Star Wars.
The Star Wars.
The Star Wars.
The Star Wars. No, yeah, no, it predates the Star Wars. I thought you were talking about our episode 4, and I was like, that was like 1408 or some shit. That was like, that's John Cusack wasn't born when this movie came out. Okay, he probably was, but whatever. This movie's rated PG. No.
Nope.
No, not a chance.
I mean, PG by, like, those... Like Jaws was PG.
It's PG because the MPAA hadn't created PG-13 yet.
Right.
That is why this movie is PG.
Yes.
This movie is in no way, shape, or form PG. Do not watch this with the kiddos.
No.
I mean, it's not like... I wouldn't give it an R, but I would give it, like, a medium plus PG-13.
Yeah, absolutely.
1 hour and 35 minutes.
Felt too short.
Honestly...
Like, I could have gone with another 30 minutes.
Yeah, I never would have thought that this was a tight 90. Like, this was so... It was so quick.
Okay, genres. We've got comedy, crime, mystery, thriller. Anything else?
Honestly, I would probably omit thriller.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, thriller's maybe a bit of a stretch. It's the weakest of the categories, for sure.
Yeah, and I think in the way that it's used in this movie, mystery is sufficient.
Yes. Yeah, no.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of the elements of mystery sort of cover the ground of, I think, what they were going for thriller. The other thing that I feel like, again, I always like to throw in the categories that don't really exist as categories, right? This movie is not a spoof, but it is very spoof-y, spoof-adjacent, right? It's very shtick in the way that spoofs tend to be, but I don't think its source material is, like, principally drawn from a single thing. It is drawn from sort of, like, the generalized melange of mystery, thriller, novels, and movies.
Right.
And it's sort of spoofing that. It's spoofing the genre, and I would say it's not a spoof almost exclusively because there isn't, like, principal source material, right? Like, Airplane was a true spoof, right? Spaceballs was, like, you know, mostly Star Wars. Robin Hood Men in Tights was mostly Robin Hood, like...
And the humor was kind of, like, in those veins, you know? It was quippy, it was slapsticky, like you said. Like, it never stopped, you know?
Yeah, no, it very much felt like a Mel Brooks film.
Yeah. In, like, just the rapid-fire, like, absurdity.
Yeah, it had the tone of a spoof.
But unlike most of Mel Brooks' work, it was not a spoof. Like, there was not an origin source, like, oh, this is spoofing off of ABC.
Right. Just a general, like, this is what mystery thrillers like to do. They love to throw in shit like this, so let's make fun of that.
It felt like the murder mysteries that my grandma used to read all the time.
It was definitely the murder mysteries that your grandma used to read.
Yeah.
All the time. I would say, like, maybe of all the source materials, maybe, like, Agatha Christie was maybe mainly what they were going for here. What do we have for our description of this movie?
Okay. I have 5 famous literary detective characters and their sidekicks are invited to a bizarre mansion to solve an even stranger mystery.
Ooh.
Wow. Way to really give it your best.
Way to dial it up to 11, Colin.
Yeah, it's enthusiasm, guys. It's called showmanship. Okay, look it up.
What do you even contribute here, okay?
I contributed an ooh. I thought that was obvious.
Yeah, there was no ham on that ooh, though.
All right, hang on. Let me try it again. Ooh.
Much better than
that was solid.
Thank you.
You know what? It felt better.
Knocked it out of the park.
That was 11 out of 10.
I see what you were saying about the first one.
Who do we have in this movie?
Well, hang on. How do we feel about the description?
I think the description is tight.
Is there anything you'd add or subtract? Or...
No, and
that's math, by the way, adding and subtracting.
Oh, is that what that is?
I also think that this is the kind of movie that is impossible to spoil, you know.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
It is, yeah. Comedies are good like that, right? Like, comedies and, like, I think we've talked about it previously, rom-coms are really good about, like, you just can't spoil them. You know what's coming.
Even if we gave away the ending, it's still fun to watch it happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you were saying...
who's in this, Colin?
Okay, so I believe Brittany Murphy's in this.
Oh, okay.
And that, what I just said, was a lie, because this movie came out before she was born.
I mean, what the Falk?
What the Falk?
What the Peter Falk?
What the Peter Falk?
God. So, Peter Falk was in this. Grandpa and the old Princess Bride. Who else we got?
Alec Guinness, who you may possibly recognize as the one, the only Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Certainly not the only, but one of the Obi-Wans.
I mean, he's my Obi-Wan.
He's my Obi-Wan.
He's my Obi-Wan too, but there are some, like, very thirsty fangirls and boys out there. I mean, I'm a little thirsty for Ewan McGregor too, but...
Alec Guinness is my Obi number 1.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, you want a little side Obi, right?
You know, Obi 2.
An Obi 2.
Or Obi Trice.
An Obi 2 Kenobi.
Ooh.
Obi Trice, real name, no gimmicks?
I really like you trying to sell the other Obi-Wans.
Yeah, Peter sold it a little bit.
Yeah, he surely did. Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Also in this movie. What else? What's Peter Sellers been in? Never heard of this guy.
So Peter Sellers, I mean, my go-to for Peter Sellers is Dr. Strangelove.
See, for me, he was always Pink Panther, but Dr. Strangelove is probably his most iconic of our upbringings.
Like most of the Pink Panthers, right?
Yes.
Or like all of them?
Yeah.
So Peter Sellers in Dr. Strangelove plays Dr. Strangelove, plays Group Captain Lionel Mandrake and President Merkin Mulfley. He was fucking everybody in that movie.
Yeah.
Not fucking everybody. He was everybody in that fucking movie. Maybe he's fucking everybody. I don't know his life.
Maybe he was.
Listen, he's out here Peter selling things on the streets. This guy fucks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that this guy fucks. Who else we got in this movie?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get all pretentious, a bit of a Capote, if you will, but Truman was in this.
Oh, yeah.
Truman Capote.
Truman from the show?
I believe
Yes.
it's pronounced Truman Capote.
Oh.
Yeah. Truman Capote, In Cold Blood, is probably his most famous work. And that's what made him kind of rubbing elbows with high society types.
You would also probably know him from Breakfast at Tiffany's. Eileen Brennan.
Okay, so you can't see me, listeners.
He's wringing his hands.
But I'm like, here. That's what I do when I get excited.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big boy. That's what big boys do.
I'm a big boy. Yeah. I'm a big boy.
Okay, so this movie, again, like Mark said, it can't really be spoiled. So I'm going to say this pre-spoilers. If there's one movie that is so much like this, it's Clue. The movie Clue with Tim Curry and fucking take your pick. Everybody else. Clue is this movie's spiritual twin. If you love the movie Clue, you need to see this movie fucking yesterday. And the one sort of interesting bit is there is some cross-pollination, and it comes in the form of Eileen Brennan. She plays Mrs. Peacock in Clue. The one who dresses like a peacock.
Yes.
Kinda, right? And she thinks she gets poisoned, and she goes, ah! And she drops her glass, and,
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely.
I love Clue. It's one of my go-tos for the Halloween season.
Speaking of poisoning, though, I would not want my Coco poisoned.
No.
But that brings me to my next point. James Coco is in this movie, who, of course, from from Muppets Take Manhattan. But more seriously, what would you guys say is his biggest
He was
namesake?
Mr. Skeffington. Come on, in
Mr.
Muppets
Skeffington.
Take Manhattan. You don't just go, yeah, it was just seriously with somebody serious.
Well, I'm just saying, this is a very serious movie. He's a very serious actor.
But yeah, you've got Twilight Zone and Who's the Boss. He's been in everything. You would know him if you saw him, for sure.
He's got a very recognizable face. He was in Fantasy Island and all sorts of things. We mention him not because we are intimately familiar, but because he's got that face. You've seen him before
Yes.
a billion times.
Yeah. Someone else you've probably seen before. Maggie Smith.
Maggie Smith!
She's immortal.
The one, the only, the legend.
Born in 1621 in Londonderry, Maggie Smith made her way to Hollywood because she wanted to be on the big screen. Hollywood didn't exist back then, but she made her way there anyway because she knew
She built it.
that was going to be where they did not shoot the Harry Potter series.
Right.
Because they shot it in London. So she kind of, missed...
Circuitous route.
Yeah, she sort of took a strange path and ended up in London, which is not near Londonderry, but it's a hell of a lot closer than Hollywood.
She's
Yeah,
definitely hooked by the whole life.
Ah!
Oh, because she played Wendy Moira Angela Darling. In
Another legend of film. You may or may not recognize David Niven, also famous for The Pink Panther. He was Sir Charles Lytton in The Pink Panther, playing across from the legendary Peter Sellers.
David Niven is also known by a lot of Bond fans. He plays Bond in the original Casino Royale film. So if you're a Bond fan, David Niven should not be a name that escapes you.
What was Bond's first name again?
I believe it was Terry.
Oh, I've been pronouncing it wrong the whole time. I always said James.
No, it was definitely Terry.
It's a common mistake.
Okay. But you know what wasn't a mistake? James Cromwell. He was in this as well. And you know what? I've never really, sought him out in the movies that he's been in, but, I really appreciate when he's there. You know?
Oh, yeah.
He's been in so much. But what I really associate James Cromwell with is First Contact, the Star Trek movie. I think it was, the 8th one or something like that.
Right.
Man.
He's so good. James Cromwell, Google him. You will know his face. He's a tall fella. He's very long. Look, you could, took, kind of an average-looking fella and just sort of stretched him a bit. Just a wee bit. We've got Elsa Lancaster in this movie. Elsa Lancaster, again, one of those people you'd know by face, but perhaps not by name. She was in The Bride of Frankenstein. She played Mary Wollstonecraft. She also was in Mary Poppins. She played Katie Nana.
Oh, yes. Another one that you would probably recognize, Nancy Walker played Angela from The Golden Girls.
Yep. All right, so I am almost out of silly actor puns.
Okay, what's ridiculous is I feel like we didn't actually talk about how, this movie's cast is so fucking good. There's so many people.
Amazing.
I can never, every time I bring this movie up to people, we never do cherries. We'll do quick round cherries.
Yep.
I had my cherry popped.
Cherry.
I did not.
Yep.
Big surprise
There's
there.
not much of a surprise.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I haven't seen this movie in probably 10 years at least.
That's fair.
I've seen this movie maybe 2 or 3 times. More than once, less than 4, I'll say. But I haven't seen it in a long, long time, so a lot of the gags were fresh to me.
Yeah, but like Colin was saying, every single person in this movie which was legendary in their own right, and they were also very interconnected. A lot of them played across from each other or next to each other in various different shows, movies.
Peter Sellers and David Niven were both in Pink Panther, and that wasn't a movie, that was like a franchise.
Yeah.
Right? These people worked together, a lot of them, pretty regularly.
Nancy
which was really
Walker
cool.
and Peter Falk both played on Columbo.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of times, at least for me personally, when I see that the cast is so top billed, I hesitate.
It raises a red flag.
Yeah, in this case, it's the opposite. I feel like a lot of times, you get big names together and it kind of falls flat because everyone's trying to steal some spotlight and it just feels janky. This was real synergy. Everyone built upon each other and it elevated the whole project. It was amazing.
I don't know this for a fact, but I suspect that is a modern phenomenon. This stuff was always very capitalized, but before the vested interests and capitalists dug their greedy little fingers into Hollywood so deeply, where nowadays you have an ensemble cast, and it basically translates to, we didn't spend any money on writing, or a good script, or a director who knows how to handle this type of star power, or fucking literally anything that could make a movie good. It just means we cobbled together a whole bunch of names that you recognize and people you like from other movies because we know your dumbass is going to drag your ass to the theater
to see at least one of them.
You just fucking like Bradley Cooper's face and you think he's a talented actor. which he is, but Bradley Cooper can't help the fact that he was suckered into a contract of 3 films and they got to choose the third one, and it's fucking ensemble cast number 76.
Yep.
You know, and I think this movie preceded that phenomenon. So, like,
Yeah.
our generation, when we see that type of star power, like Mark said, it's a red flag, it's a warning. It is a poison dart frog, and the bright colors mean danger. And in this movie, it just works so fucking good because everybody's a heavy hitter and everybody's bringing their A game to an already rockin' script and idea.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say was, like, before the Robert Downey Jr.'s and Bradley Coopers of today, everybody was Robert Downey Jr. and Bradley Cooper. They would put together movies with 10, 12, 14 megastars, and they all played across from each other beautifully because they'd done it so many times before. Mm-hmm. Whereas nowadays, you get one big name and a bunch of nobodies to put somebody on the map for a future film.
Right. No, I agree.
So that is my go-to for this movie. Is this movie's star power is amazing, and it's a star power that precedes us by quite a bit, and that's pretty jamming.
Yep. Who directed this thing?
Robert Moore. I don't think he directed Robert Less.
Oh.
No, I think you're right. I think that Robert Less was a little less well known.
It's a quantity thing.
I honestly don't recognize a lot, like anything much that he's done.
Oh, really?
Though there are a couple things on here like Rhonda and the Cheap Detective, which I haven't seen, but I do see in the IMDb credits of a lot of the actors in this movie. So he has directed some of these people before.
And that,
oh, yeah.
That makes sense, too, that this is a troupe, more or less, you know.
But yeah, you've got Rhoda, the Sunshine Boys.
Oh, it's Rhoda. Did I say Ron? I said Rhonda. Rhoda. Yeah, I never saw Rhoda.
He was the director for the Bob Newhart show, and Bob Newhart was another one of those big names. He was a megastar back then.
Forgot to mention, Neil Simon wrote this movie. We don't normally mention writers unless there's some significance. Neil Simon wrote this movie. Neil Simon very famously wrote The Odd Couple and The Goodbye Girl and The Sunshine Boys. But The Odd Couple was definitely Neil Simon's sort of like piece de resistance.
But what did his partner Garfunkel write?
Oh, Garfunkel very famously, while Neil Simon was writing this, just sort of stood there and picked his fro.
Fro picking.
But I mean, you know, that's a contribution.
Fro picking, is that a band name?
Fro picking?
Fro
Yeah.
picking. Fro picking? I feel like fro picking, even though there is the word fro in there, I am definitely hearing fro picking as like a deep Tennessee banjo kind of like. The second fro picking comes on, it's like.
See, I was thinking exactly that, but in German.
Why would that be in German?
Fro picking.
Oh, fro picking, frau picking,
Frau picking.
Ooh, there's connotations there because of what frau means. Ooh, frau picking. Ooh, that made it much dirtier.
You went there.
I did not
Yeah,
go there.
I took us all there, and you were there with me.
I was perfectly happy with a banjo on a serene country road with a babbling brook next to me, and Jackson shoved me in a plane, flew me to Germany, and said, "Look at this very filthy sex act called Frau Picken."
And you chose to get out.
I opened my eyes. That's all I did.
You chose to do it. He drove you there. You got out of the car.
I did.
That's on you.
Well, hey, listen. Somebody shoves me in a car and takes me to Germany. I'm going to get out of that car, and I'm going to look at some filthy, filthy, nasty German sex.
Some fraus. A couple of fraus.
Couple of fraus. Oh, we just a couple of fraus. Couple of fraus.
Well, you know what they say. When you hear banjos, paddle faster.
That's the sound that you make if you don't paddle fast enough. Okay, so clarification. This is not the same Neil Simon. Before we move on, I think I broke Jackson. You all right there?
Yep, most of my beer went in my mouth.
My beer? Wait a minute. All right. I'm not. Yep. Okay.
Just gonna leave that alone.
I'm just gonna leave that alone.
Can we go around the table? Are we recommending? Are we not recommending? It sounds like we didn't really like this movie very much. So.
Oh, you know, there were definitely parts of this movie that I would recommend to everyone. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So, okay, I feel we have to do this pre-spoilers. Okay, this movie, I'm putting on my flashing lights. You can't see my hands, but I'm doing flashing lights with my hands.
He's flashing us.
You gonna throw out some caveats?
I am flashing. So one major thing that we need to disclose about this movie, we're just gonna get it out of the way. We're gonna talk about it, and we are probably not going to discuss it a whole lot after that. Not to say that it's not pervasive throughout the film, but this movie is of its time and has a whole bunch but one very specific, but let's say a whole bunch of extremely insensitive and racist stereotypes, depictions, and caricatures.
One of which very notably by Peter Sellers.
Yeah, Peter Sellers actively plays a caricature of a Chinese person circa Hollywood's interpretation in 1976.
Back when they still used the word Oriental.
Yes. So if you are at all sensitive to racial stereotypes, caricatures, passive racism remarks from this time era, or you have trouble sort of like leaving that kind of stuff at the door, which again, I don't blame you. We all have our things that we can't lay down. This movie, if you can't get past that kind of thing, don't watch it. It is very pervasive throughout the film. I mean, he's a whole character. So, like...
A very prominent character.
A very prominent character. And there's not many characters in this movie. It's only, 12 people total?
Yeah.
It's a very limited cast. So, if that is the kind of thing that bothers you, even in the slightest, and you don't think you're going to be able to see past it or get through it, again, I don't blame you, but definitely don't watch this movie.
Now, I would definitely draw a distinction between... It was not malicious racism. It was ignorant racism, which I feel there is a difference, but I also recognize that there is not a difference. It was all done tongue-in-cheek, but again, it was definitely born out of ignorance and would not in any way fly today.
No.
And rightfully. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It is a horrible thing to see. But it's like being able to watch Dumbo without the super fucking racist depictions of the crows, right? If you can just ignore the fact that is in the movie, I'm not saying you should or should not. I'm saying if you can, you might be able to still watch a movie about a flying elephant.
Yeah.
That's fair.
This movie, if you can ignore the super racist depiction of a Chinese person throughout the movie, it's a really awesome movie sans that point.
I'll even say that Peter Sellers' delivery was very funny, even though it was soaked in racism, what we're talking about here. Again, that statement that it's funny is still missing the point of what we're trying to communicate right now. But again, I just want to try to emphasize that
it's not funny because of the caricature. It's funny because of the lines that the person was delivering.
Exactly.
Regardless of who delivered it, it was a funny character.
Peter Sellers played his part extremely well and extremely comedically. The fact that his part was tragically racist was disappointing, to say the least. But all that to say, I laughed my ass off. Again, I didn't laugh my ass off because it was racist. I laughed my ass off because the lines were genuinely hilarious.
Yeah.
I feel like we're beating a horse here.
Yeah, I agree. I think we put the disclaimer out there. That exists in the movie. I think if you're the kind of person who can just be like, people in 1976 honestly didn't know that they were being offensive or upsetting, the rest of the movie is fucking tight. Fucking top notch. Okay, so that's out of the way. We've discussed it. We're going to probably leave it in the rear view for now.
As much as possible.
As much as possible. It's not always easy to divorce it, but
okay.
Now that we've acknowledged it, I would say, that aside, I would recommend this movie.
Blanket Rex with the warning that if you're sensitive to racial stereotypes, this may not be for you.
Yeah, but it is, it's a funny movie.
Oh, it's so funny.
It's a funny movie. And I feel like comedy, sort of... Setting aside what we just talked about, I feel like comedy is so often a time and place, right? And so, for that reason, comedies, 30 years on, can be not funny. The writing in this is still funny today.
Absolutely.
The jokes are still fucking funny. The jokes still land. There's a lot of comedies I'll watch from 1965 and I'm like, I'm sure this fucking killed in 1965, but it's boring as shit today and the jokes don't make sense and they're just they fall flat and it feels like I'm watching a grandparent struggle on stage right now.
Yes.
Very few comedies age with the grace that this movie did, and I'm talking about specifically the non-racist writing. This movie was fucking funny and it will probably be funny 50 years on.
Yeah, no, I feel like the comedy, and I want to draw a distinction here, the comedy aged like a fine wine. The depictions are what soured for me.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And I think
that's what it is.
There's a distinction there.
Because I don't want to be saying the comedy as a blanket statement aged super well, because obviously some of the comedy is based on not great things, but comedy in general typically doesn't age well.
No.
And so it's so interesting to see a movie that's this old that can still make me laugh that hard.
For me, it's similar to watching things like Blazing Saddles, right? Blazing Saddles is overtly offensive, but the movie is still funny. The comedy is still funny.
That's actually a good comparison. That's a good comparison. If you are the kind of person who was offended by Blazing Saddles, don't watch this movie.
Yeah.
But if you watch Blazing Saddles and still find it funny, even today, watch this movie.
Yeah, if you can separate the offensive items from the comedy, then this will be a smash hit for you.
Is the horse sufficiently dead?
I believe that it is a corpse.
Mark?
If it starts moving again, I'll let you know and we'll take it.
All right.
Would you recommend the movie?
No, I hated this movie.
Yeah, I got that sense.
Yeah.
I got that sense. When
This was a Stardust for Mark.
It was a...
Yeah, it was terrible.
Whoa.
It was
Whoa.
terrible.
I thought we were beating dead horses here.
You are ripping Band-Aids off that you know what? I still haven't forgiven you two for fucking Low, so still haven't forgiven you for Low. But yes, no, I could tell in your laughs that, like, they weren't the kind of laughs that were like, oh, haha, I love this movie, I'll recommend it. They were the kind of laughs that were like, haha, I'm not going to recommend this movie.
They were like, haha, I'm laughing so hard, I hate these people.
No,
Yes.
I fucking love this movie. This was such a treat, and for me, this is the bread and butter of what we do on the podcast.
Yes!
This movie did not exist in my world before tonight, when we sat down and we watched it. And I feel like I now have something that I can share with other people, and I really want other people to watch it, and I want to talk to them about it.
Not to circle jerk it, but, like, bringing it to the scene score. Like, the fact that, like, this movie didn't exist in your catalog universe, and then you saw it and enjoyed it this much, like, that enhanced it more than if you had, like, known about it for, like, years and years.
Absolutely.
And then saw it, right? Like, the unknowing.
Yeah.
It fucking enhances the
If
movie,
this was
right?
a movie that was sitting on the back of my shelf that I'd gone, I've never watched this. Maybe I should sit down and watch it sometime. But then never do. And then eventually I get to see it and I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad that I finally watched this movie.
That's different.
It's so different than I didn't know this movie existed and I am better for having seen it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, 3 Rex around?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess.
Are we ready to... I did not know Mark was a baritone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mark really brought us down there. Yeah, we maxed out
We hit
the little doodles.
All the frequencies.
Yeah.
All
If
of
you're
them.
listening to us in your car and you didn't crash it, good on you. Well
Yeah.
done.
Props.
We're proud of you.
impressed.
Gold star. We'll send you a burp envelope.
Yeah, you get a dojo point.
So how's this movie start up?
So this movie starts with someone addressing envelopes to a party. What kind of party is it?
It is a dinner party.
Dinner and murder.
Dinner and a murder.
Murder.
Not of crows,
No.
but of people.
The best kind of murder. And yeah, dude, within that first scene, he's like writing out the letters. There's like a little like joke where he has his blind butler like put stamps on these letters. He being this mysterious figure that we haven't identified yet. Somebody's butler who cannot see is asked to put stamps and mail out these letters, and he's like slowly like putting them on his tongue, and he's putting them down.
And you
don't
get this
really
really nasty close-up of his mouth just seductively and very wetly
Very
licking
interesting
stamps.
that you chose the word seductive to describe that. But go ahead, Mark.
Alec Guinness is seductive, and I will die on that hill.
You are drinking a Guinness. Bit of an-
I Guinness drocked.
yeah.
My friends in Britain are going to murder me.
It's fine.
My family and
Murder me by death. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
But like that, like told me like right away that this is a movie I'm here for.
We got to finish the joke.
Which one? I haven't joked.
You were talking about the licking of the stamps.
Yeah, there's no joke. He was licking the stamps and he was sucking on them seductively.
Yeah, and then he was applying them to the envelopes.
Envelopes.
I did air quotes there. They didn't see that.
Envelopes.
Envelopes?
Envelopes, yeah.
Yep. No, he was putting them mother effers on the.
Like off screen, down below the screen.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
Oh, he's putting them on the envelopes.
No, he was putting them on the table.
Yeah, he like walks away, and there's just like this line of like 7 stamps on the fucking desk.
But yeah, that told you what kind of movie this was gonna be.
Oh,
It
100%.
It wasn't gonna be ashamed. Yeah, it's all fucking shtick.
Also, you didn't see the face of the person in the chair. You definitely know who it was because they spoke, and nobody has a voice like Truman Capote.
Nobody. The second he opened his mouth, I immediately said it. I was like, that was 100% Truman Capote.
Yep.
And I'm gonna show my hand here. I am not totally upset that nobody has a voice like Truman Capote.
No.
Because
honestly, I think it's wonderful.
If I lived in a world where people walked around speaking like that all the time, I would probably murder myself by death.
I would move.
Tell him to shut up. Shut up. Shut up.
Mark would be the crazy guy on the street corner with his hands over his ears going, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And all the Truman Capotes would go, what's wrong with you? That was a bad Truman Capote impression.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
That was a very curious choice of quote, but...
I don't like it any more than you, man.
What is happening right now?
It's Cool Hand Luke. It's fucking Cool Hand Luke.
But you leaned into it.
No, it's the Civil War, Guns N' Roses.
It was Guns N' Roses. I do believe actually those quotes were from a Guns N' Roses album somewhere.
Yeah, I mean I saw Cool Hand Luke once.
It was a deep cut.
I know it from Guns N' Roses.
Taking it off, here, boss.
Yeah, taking it off there, Luke. So it kind of transitions to we're meeting all of the characters as they're driving to the dinner party.
I mean, it's literally fucking Clue, right? The beginning of Clue is this giant fucking house that is, all mahogany and is a fucking gorgeous house up on a hill in the middle of a rainstorm, and all these people are fucking arriving in these old-fashioned cars, right? This movie came out in 76. They didn't state a year, but it felt kind of like 1955, 1950 maybe.
Yeah.
Kind of like Clue does, right? Clue came out in, the early 80s, 83, 84 maybe, but the vibe was like 50.
I think the
55.
combination of the board game and the director having seen this film was what inspired the movie Clue.
Yes, totally. Big house on a hill, somewhere between a mansion and a castle.
Dark night, rainstorm.
And then all of these people are arriving in this sort of like foggy maze of thrush and poorly defined edges. And they show up to the house, and what happens?
Well, the blind butler doesn't see them to their room.
The Blutler, please.
The Blutler, yeah, doesn't see them to their room, but politely escorts them.
Because he can't.
Exactly.
Wait, hang on.
Let's just put a point on it.
Wait, because he
can't.
Because he can't see?
Because he can't see because he's blind.
Oh, shit, you got me good.
The doorbell made me laugh every single time because the sound of the doorbell was a woman screaming bloody murder. It tickled my funny bone. Mm-hmm. It tickled me so hard.
I want that doorbell.
Yes!
Yeah.
I definitely want the doorbell.
And it was not a fucking, Wilhelm scream. It was I'm being murdered type scream.
Yeah.
It was severe.
Like someone is stabbing me to death kind of scream. So everybody is welcomed to the door in their own very macabre different ways. And Sidney Wang is escorted to his room, his son Willie Wang.
Of course.
Willie Wang.
And then Dick Charleston and his wife are escorted to their room, which is covered in cobwebs.
Yes, to which they immediately discover the dust is baking soda and the cobwebs are spun sugar. And we're put there just to make the room a little bit more creepy.
Yeah.
Also, one of my favorite parts was, as they were entering the room, Alec Guinness, the blind butler, is recounting how this was Madame's room. This was the room of the lady of the house, and she died in this room. And of course, Maggie Smith inquires, well, how'd she die? And he says, she murdered herself in her sleep. Oh my God, you mean suicide? Oh no, sir, it was murder, all right. Madame hated herself.
Picture that line, but picture the stoicism and calmness of Alec Guinness.
With his eyes going two different directions.
Oh my God, it was flawless.
But just convinced that it was not suicide, it was murder. She hated herself.
I mean, that's all it could be, really.
There's nothing else could be.
Yeah. Murder by death.
Okay, so people get kind of situated in their various rooms, and dinner will be served at 9. We meet the cook. The cook comes in?
Yes, huh?
Yeah, let's cook in quotes.
Cook in quotes?
We'll put cook in quotes. We'll do air quotes around cook.
Well, I mean, she was the cook.
She just didn't cook anything.
Yeah. She also couldn't read, she couldn't hear, and she couldn't speak. So it made it very difficult for her to communicate with the blind butler.
Yes.
Yeah, that gag was kind of playing out to death. No pun intended.
So everyone is in their respective rooms, asked to come down at 9, dressed nicely, and they make it into the dining room, and in pretty short order, they realize that everybody who has been invited to this is one of the top 5 detectives in the world. You have Sidney Wang, who is Chinese, actually played by Peter Sellers, who, believe it or not, is not Chinese.
How could you tell?
We have...
Maybe because he's a white guy.
Yep.
Yeah, that tipped me off.
Yep.
That was my first clue.
That was the dead nuts.
We have... I'm just going to give their descriptions because I can't remember their fucking names. We've got a sort of hardline, and I'm going to say, with a New York accent, Peter Falk, even though he was from San Francisco, carries a gun very like, hey, you sweetheart, taking a very like hard, maybe like Humphrey Bogart in Casablanca, right? Like, you're getting on that plane,
pow, right in the kisser.
Yeah, Jackie Gleason, maybe a little Jackie Gleason tossed in there.
Plays the great detective Sam Diamond.
Basically, actually, again, I'm going to get back to the people, but like, there's a through line in this, right? We're spoofing all murder mysteries, and his character is specifically from, I would say, the genre of film noir.
Yes.
Think Dick Tracy.
Yeah. She came in. She was all legs up to her hips. Her hips are where her legs stopped. She was an angel, but a devil too. Like that kind of silly bullshit. Like, you can imagine.
Fedora, trench coat.
Fedora and trench coat, all black, a lot of shadows and rainy nights, and never gets light in that city.
And his partner was dressed as a blonde bombshell the whole time.
He embodied the sort of film noir aspect of the murder mystery. I think Sidney Wang embodied the sort of like foreign aspect, which I think is like, it's not totally unheard of, especially in the early days, to have like a foreign, specifically East Asian detective working an American case in a lot of like film and television and comic books. Then you had an Englishman who was also solving murders. He sort of took on the
Scotland Yard detective.
Yeah, the sort of classic British detective.
Dick Charleston.
Then you had a guy who was not French. He was Belgian, but for all intents and purposes, he was French, and he was supposed to be the sort of Jacques Cousteau, over-the-top kind of Pink Panther-y type.
Superior.
So funny.
And then you had the last one, which was the English woman who, again, not probably established at the time of this movie. I'm not sure exactly when this started, but she was Angela Lansbury.
Yeah, she was in
Murder. She was Murder, She Wrote.
She was basically if you took Agatha Christie and made her into Angela Lansbury.
Yep. So it really kind of like filled out the spectrum of stereotypes with regard to like detectives and like, the whodunits.
Which is fucking clever, I think.
Oh, yeah,
I think
brilliant.
that's a really fucking clever thing to be like, we're going to spoof murder mysteries. We're going to, like, and it's like, all of them. Okay, but you've got all sorts of murder mysteries. You've got the, film noir types. You've got the
cozy murder mystery.
Yeah, you got the Agatha Christie, what's his name? Hercule Poirot. Poirot was one of Agatha Christie's big ones. You've got sort of the East Asian bend, and a lot of, that kind of shit. You've got all of these different...
The Sherlock Holmes.
That is who the British guy is riffing.
Yeah,
for sure. Sherlock Holmes, thank you for bringing that up. And it's like, what a fucking creative way to be like, let's cover all our bases, and you know what? All of them are in it.
Yep. But what made it so good is all of their counterparts, all of their plus ones. Really, like, the comedy would not have worked so well were it not for their riffing back and forth with, their plus ones. Detective Wang had Willie, and there were so many jokes back and forth with that. He was his adopted son, and he happened to be Japanese, and so there was a lot of, like, jokes at that expense. The Frenchman had, what was his name?
His driver, his chauffeur. I
can't remember his name either.
But that was James Cromwell, I think.
Yes.
To play them. And just their chemistry was so hilarious. The Englishman had Maggie Smith.
Dora Charleston.
Oh, it was so good.
Who's his wife? Yeah,
and she would frequently be the one to, like, call out the obvious things in the room, and then he would kind of, like, bristle a little bit and then just repeat what she said. That was a really common theme back and forth between them. What's her face? The female detective. Marbles,
yeah.
Jessica Marbles.
Yeah, nice.
She had her nurse with her, but her nurse was like,
1,000 years old.
yeah, it must have been her wet nurse. Like, she was like at least 20 or 30 years older than she was.
Her nurse needed a nurse, and she was that. It was so silly. And then who was it? It was
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk's character. He had the blonde bombshell. The
film noir type he was.
The chemistry between all of the principal characters and their plus ones was amazing.
And I think what's sort of interesting that just sort of now occurred to me is like, all of their plus ones, I feel like, were designed to specifically detract, cut down, and sort of like piece apart their characters.
Yeah.
Right. Their plus ones were specifically designed to make their characters seem ridiculous, where in their standard context, they would seem amazing and heroic and clever and whatever it happens to be. Their plus ones were all designed to sort of take them to pieces and reveal things about them that would humanize them.
Yes.
Like it gets revealed that the rich English guy is like actually not rich, and he's actually a really poor investor, and he's got no money, and he's actually just this stuffy, effete society type. The sort of hard-nosed San Francisco, but let's say Bronx type detective who's taking bullets, and he's just like the epitome of masculinity in 1976.
Is secretly closeted
Is
gay.
secretly gay, and it is funny how each of them sort of get taken apart by their associate.
Yeah.
And Perrier is outed quite often by his assistant Marcel for being weak and stuffy and having a sweet tooth. And Marcel often is the reason that Perrier is still alive.
Right.
Again, Pink Panther-y kind of,
Yes.
right? Like, or Mr. Magoo even.
Yeah.
Right, like Mr. Magoo doesn't actually solve these things or like figure things out. He gets lucky and has a lot of help.
He stumbles upon a situation where he is spoon-fed the right answer and takes the credit.
And that's Perrier in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was beautifully crafted in how they did this. Okay, so they're at the dinner. They're told
By their host, played by Truman Capote.
Yep. That tonight, at the stroke of midnight, someone in this room will be murdered by someone else in this room.
And I feel like the next, major chunk of the film can be summed up by playing the Benny Hill theme.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just all shenanigans the whole time.
There's like a running bit where like every painting and every taxidermied head in this mansion, the eyes get pulled out by some weird secret passageway behind it, and then there's a real eye that kind of pokes out and just watching. Dude, I lost it when there's a painting of a dog, and it's not even it's not even center stage. The characters are just walking past this picture, and all of a sudden you see a human tongue come out of this dog painting's mouth and just start wagging it. It's so fucking weird.
It's panting, and there's no reason for there to be a tongue hole.
No.
Not at all!
Eye holes are sufficient. You don't need to cut out the dog's tongue hole.
Well, and Willie even brings it up. He's like, the dog. And he's like, yeah, dogs stick their tongue out. Let's move on.
You're right, yeah.
I can't move on from this. What is going on?
Also, it sort of gets revealed that the host is a master of mechanics and automation and shit like that. So the house, it's never fully explained, but the house moves, or some flavor of that, where you open a door and it's one room, and then you close it and wait a certain amount of time, and then it's another room. So shit's moving around. It's all designed to sort of fuck with the detectives, and the motivation by the host, played by Truman Capote, is basically Truman Capote's character wants to prove that he is the greatest detective in the world, the greatest criminologist, as they put it, in the world, above and beyond these five, who are considered the best five.
Right. They are the top in their field. All of them are competing for the number one spot, and Truman Capote's character is like, y'all are fools, I'm the best. Wahaha!
Mm-hmm.
It's like Usain Bolt and his fellas being approached by some tubby asshole on the street and being like, by the way, I'm the fastest in a foot race.
And I can prove it.
And I can prove it.
By killing one of you.
Yes.
Okay, so there's definitely some back and forth. They take turns leaving the room, in groups, and then coming back in the room.
At one point, they discover that the butler is dead at the kitchen table, and they leave the room, come back to the room, and the body is gone, but the clothes are still there.
Arranged at the table.
As if a body were sitting in them.
Yep. And then they leave the room, and they come back in the room, and now the butler is there naked.
But the clothes are gone.
Yeah. So it's those kinds of just weird sort of hijinks that they run into, like a funhouse. It's basically a funhouse.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's all designed to test and fuck with their ability to detect certain things, to the point where initially, like Mark said, the eyes of paintings would sort of get pulled back, and then it would be human eyes sort of looking out. But that sort of transitions pretty quick when you realize that Truman Capote is the fucking mastermind behind this. He's talking to them through the paintings,
Yeah.
and through the moose head, and he's
moose.
having active conversations with them.
He's giving them clues because they get stumped. So he's talking through the taxidermy, if you will.
Ooh.
To the detectives.
I mean, he's even correcting their grammar.
Yes.
He's just this pretentious little turd,
That's a good way of putting him, yeah.
Okay, so clock strikes midnight. I think the door opens, and what is the character's name? Truman Capote.
Especially with a W.
He's Lionel Twain.
Okay, yeah.
Told you there was a W.
Yeah.
Twain. He falls into the room.
Stabbed 12 times with a butcher knife.
Yep. Yep.
Which is exactly how he described that the murder would take place when he introduced them all at 30 minutes to midnight.
And then they go to bed?
I thought he was going to say they go to commercial. And then cut to commercial, brought to you by Borax.
Yes.
It will take stains out of your clothes.
Oh, yeah.
Brought to you by Thompson's Teeth. The only teeth strong enough to eat other teeth. That is a very explicit Futurama reference, but it's my favorite.
So they go to bed, right? I mean, what's the transition between dead body and...
They do have a small window where they try to, like, solve the stabbing, the murder of Twain.
Some of them pin it on the butler, some of them pin it on the cook.
And it gets revealed that they all have a motive. Again, Clue, right? Like, everybody in Clue, it comes out about halfway through that everybody was being blackmailed by Mr. Body, right? Everybody in this movie had a connection to Twain, and their connection, all of them would suggest that they would have a motive enough to kill him.
Every single one of them was a motive for murder.
Yep. And they'll even, like, there's, like, one bit where, like, I hadn't gotten around to it yet.
Like,
You know, somebody
they're like, I was going to kill him, but somebody beat me to it.
Yeah. Okay, so they haven't figured it out. They go to bed for the night. Each one of them encounters some element that tries to kill them, and it's all different. Like, somebody's got a scorpion that was, like, crawling up their bed. Somebody has...
a venomous snake.
Yeah. There's a poisonous gas that's led into another room. The fucking ceiling starts coming down to, like, squish another group.
There's a bomb in the bed.
Okay, I want to talk about this ceiling coming down. Because I was going to say it during the movie, and then I was like, nope, this is good podcast fodder. Okay, so, earlier in the film, somebody calls Perrier Frenchie.
Yes.
And he says, no, I am a Belgie!
Yes.
Okay, so we can establish that Perrier, and likely, as an extension, his chauffeur,
Marcel,
are Belgian.
Yes.
Not French, okay? In this scene, when the ceiling is coming down, his chauffeur, played by James Cromwell, a fairly tall guy, probably about 6'4", a reasonably strong man, he tries to lift up the ceiling and actually ends up succeeding in holding the ceiling up. Now, I propose this to you. Land Down Under, to my knowledge, at this point, was not penned. But this was a man from Brussels, 6'4" and full of muscles.
It's true.
Call me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't tell you
you're wrong. I have to say, I think Men at Work ripped off
Murder by Death.
Murder by Death.
We're cracking the case.
This
is the mystery.
This is the fucking mystery.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Wow. You heard it here.
You heard it here. The hottest take that there ever was. James Cromwell is, in fact, the man from Brussels, 6'4" and full of muscles. And, I mean, admittedly, I didn't see a Vegemite sandwich, but the guy, he held up that ceiling mighty well.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. 3 men in a mystery that takes place in a basement.
Are we the mystery men?
1408. Sorry. I was trying to help. I didn't help. I'm sorry.
Right over me! You know, something like that. Okay.
Enemy mine!
Ooh.
She's mine.
God, I really wish that there was like a visual element here because, yeah, I played along. You heard my, but there was such like palpable.
There was visible and notable reticence.
Yeah.
There's things that just didn't translate to the mic.
Yeah, I played along, but I judged.
He did.
It was a judgmental, you know, as you have.
I mean, how much can you put into a? Right, like
you can put a lot in.
No, I know, but you can't pack. I mean, can't pack all that judgment in there.
I mean, you can pack a lot now.
Okay, so everybody dies.
Yeah,
and it's actually kind of a bleak ending.
Yeah, it's sort of a bummer, really.
Yep. Or nobody dies. This is okay. So we transition. This is actually, I guess, this is the final scene. Really,
it is absolutely the final scene.
And
we march through this quick because that is sort of the. You know.
I mean, again, this movie is an hour and 34 minutes, so it's not a long movie, but a lot happens in that time. It is so quick and so rapid pace.
I mean, basically, I have said this, I don't know how many countless times, right? Like, it's not long, but it's effective.
Yes.
Right. And I don't want to, like, break the basement wall or nothing here, but...
Jackson is dying laughing, but you can't hear him.
It's a sex thing. It's a sex thing.
Because Jackson, in the joke... I was talking about my penis.
He's a grower, not a shower.
You've been on the floor before and whimpered that. You have done that, right? In
week.
Times past. This week, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
He wasn't talking about you then, though.
No, not me.
Not last time.
Not this week.
Right. Yeah. That was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
When's the week start?
I don't know. I have Mondays off, so...
No, yeah. No, it's... I know.
Not to break
I've seen those videos.
the fourth basement wall here, but there was a moment where we had to pause our viewing for a second, and I looked up at how much time was left in this movie, and I saw that we were near the end of it, and I felt cheated. I felt like, because, you know, we're in the last scene, and I could tell that, like, the movie was coming to an end there, and, like, I wasn't ready for it. I love this movie so much.
It does end more abruptly, I think, than you expect.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't dissatisfied. I was
no,
just,
it's a great ending, but it definitely, like, you're right.
I
like,
wanted more.
It could have done with another 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, so this last scene was basically like the last scene in, like, Scooby-Doo, you know, where...
Oh, yeah.
Here's who the real murderer was.
Old Man Jenkins.
Yeah, and they go around, and, like, the first person in the room...
The presumption is everybody is dead.
Yeah.
Based on the things that were sent into the rooms to kill.
The murderer is crossing their names off the list.
Well, everyone is dead. The butler has died, you know...
The cook has died.
The host has died. Yeah.
This movie, again, like, in Clue, there are just countless scenes where there is the bad guy or girl, and all you see are, like, gloved hands doing something, right? Like, there is a murderer, quote-unquote. This movie does the exact same thing. There is a murderer, and actually, people occasionally throughout the movie will receive notes, like, blah, 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 signed the murderer. Like, you know, it is so explicit. And so at the end of the movie, basically everybody's fate gets left as a cliffhanger, but the presumption is that they're dead, and then the murderer, as indicated by the gloved hands and the over-the-shoulder shot, is basically saying, okay, well, they're all dead now.
He's crossing their names off of a list.
Yeah, and the host is dead, and the butler's dead, and the cook was an automaton.
Yeah. Oh my god. So, kind of in quick succession, we find out that all of the leads survived the night. They come into the room, they explain how they survived. I think one of them, the room that had, like, the gas that came into it, you know, they just said her nurse, like, breathed all the gas, and I covered my mouth, and she breathed it all in, you know.
And she goes, sicky poo.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh my god. But yeah, there are... I don't even remember all of the different accusations that were made, but, like, one of them is even like, this person, the murder was actually me, Sam Diamond.
Yeah.
You know,
He's like, I was an actor hired for the weekend, and the murderer was actually the real Sam Diamond.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. But the best part of this movie, and I think this scene is so critical to tying that all together, that this movie's job is to poke fun at the murder mystery, whatever form it may take. The classic marching in and saying, I have figured it out. It was you, person A, and I know because of this, and blah, 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 blah. Occasionally, when you have that, another person will march in and go, but it was actually you, person B, not person A. And then everybody goes, oh, you know. But this happened 5 fucking times, and it just kept evolving, and every fucking time they would accuse the killer, which was initially Alec Guinness's character, the butler. Every time they accused him of being somebody else, he would immediately adopt that persona. And just sort of, like, roll with it for a second.
One of them was a woman, one of them was a German guy.
Until somebody else marched in and accused him of being somebody else, and then he would adopt a different personality.
But then at the end of all this, so all 5 have accused the butler of being another person altogether, and then the butler rips off his face, and it's actually Truman Capote.
Or so we think.
Or so we think.
Oh my god. Okay, so boom boom, everybody's leaving. We go back to the mansion, and there's one final reveal. Truman Capote pulls a mask off, and it's the actress that played the cook.
The cook.
And then she just cackles maniacally as the credits roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maniacally puts it too delicately. It was a great laugh.
It was phenomenal. And the best part was it was actually Truman Capote laughing and not the actress that played the cook.
It's so good.
So another important component of that scene that we did not mention is that after this sort of succession of accusations where Alec Guinness is constantly adopting new personalities and then eventually reveals himself to be Truman Capote's character, he goes into this like fucking overture at the end about like how fucking frustrating it is for readers of mystery and murder fiction and shit like that, because the author intentionally withholds facts. They'll introduce new characters at the last minute. Like, they employ all of these really fucking trite, annoying tricks to try to not have the reader or the viewer, in the case of film and television, guess who the killer is. And it's so fucking annoying because if you actually review it with a closer eye or a closer lens, you're like, there's no fucking way anybody could predict it because there was insufficient information. And like most, I think, people, if you polled them who like that kind of genre, would say that part of the fun is guessing and being able to put the pieces together. And if you intentionally withhold information or you wait to introduce a very pivotal character, like, it's almost not fun anymore because you're just lying to me. Right?
And nobody can win because the
nobody
game
can
is
win.
rigged.
That's it. Nobody can win because the game is rigged. You're totally right. Thank you for saying that. That's exactly what I was going for. And it's so fucking, like, interesting and refreshing to see this very, I hate this fucking term, but, like, let's say meta monologue delivered by Truman Capote, where he derides all mystery and sort of, like, thriller authors and writers for employing these cheap, dirty tricks
That he uses the entire night.
This movie uses, like, to our satisfaction when he dives into this soliloquy.
God, it's beautiful. So, perfect segue. Let's just gush for a little bit. Some of the things that really popped out about this movie that we really liked. For me, the quippiness. Maybe I'm just naive, but rarely do I watch a movie that is this old and I find the humor so quippy and so fresh. Yeah. I felt like the comedy, the lines, and again, it probably is my own ignorance. I don't envision old movies as being funny. They can be quirky.
Sometimes no, and a lot of it happens because of the delivery.
Yeah.
For me, the delivery, especially in older films, is slower and more deliberately paced, and I feel like I'm hanging on every single word, waiting for the punchline that never comes.
This was not that.
No. And I also find that in a lot of older movies, and feel free to challenge me on this, they're almost hesitant to be offensive. So they definitely hold court and they toe the line, but not enough.
Yeah, this went all... You know what this really reminds me of? I kind of wish I brought it up earlier. The Monty Python crew.
Yes.
Yeah, a little,
the speed within which they're, like, delivering the jokes, the absolute absurdity, the jokes that are, like, a split second long that are just for the person who's, like, paying attention, If you look the other way while the movie's playing, you're gonna miss it because they don't linger on it. Like, there's so many of those little, like, just side absurd jokes in this movie. I could gush about it for hours.
The writing
was top-notch.
It was the best. It was the best. I also thought, again, this almost doesn't need to be said with the cast that we told you about in the beginning, but the acting was superb. I suppose it does need to be said in the sense that, like, I can't remember what we watched. We had a movie, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 episodes ago. I can't remember what it was, but there was something where, like, we had kind of a heavy-hitting crew, and I felt like everybody underperformed. This movie is basically everybody performing at their best.
Oh, absolutely.
Peter Sellers, his performance is on par with his performance in Doctor Strangelove. Maggie Smith, on par with Professor McGonagall. Every fucking person brought
Peter Falk, Columbo.
Brought their A game.
Yeah.
And it also captured, like, there are some current modern actors that I absolutely love. I find them hilarious, but, like, I don't necessarily love them in star roles, like Jack Black and Will Ferrell. I love Jack Black and Will Ferrell movies, but I find they are at their best when they are not playing the main character, when it's just like a bit part and they can just play to their strengths. These were all heavy hitters that could hold their own movies, but they were played to their strengths in the same way that I enjoy a Jack Black or Will Ferrell in nowadays. I don't know if my connection's making sense.
No, hang on. How do you feel about the scene in Anchorman where Jack Black and Will Ferrell are both in the same scene because Will Ferrell had the audacity to throw a burrito out of his window?
I fucking lost my mind with that.
Did your
scene.
head explode?
That's the scene that I'm talking about. That is the scene that I'm talking about. That's Jack Black's only scene in that movie, and I had to watch that scene like 50 times before I could keep watching it. Like, it's...
Did you just throw a burrito out your window, dude?
What do you love? Oh my god.
Well, it's... Didn't you see what happened? I did. That's quite a raspberry.
I don't know if any of you have seen the show Community, but there is one episode in Community.
I think there's a couple more than one. There's a few more than one.
Well, I've never seen it, so there might only be one.
It's fair.
So only one episode?
It feels like
We call
one.
that a movie.
Yeah. But there's one episode where Jack Black is in the cast.
Oh, is he?
Totally randomly, just shows up at the beginning of the season and presumably replaces one of the characters, like delivering lines that character would deliver, and then that character walks in the room and basically goes, "The fuck are you doing here?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm the new guy. I'm in your Spanish class. I heard this was a study group and I wanted to join." And they kick him out of the group immediately, and he spends the entire episode trying to get back into the group, and then you never see him again. God. And that's exactly what you're referring to. Jack Black in particular in this instance is like so phenomenal because he shows up out of nowhere, delivers his line, and then leaves.
Yeah.
I make this comparison often, but it was like a fart in an elevator. Came out of nowhere and then just peaced out.
Yeah, and it's funny. A fart in an elevator is funny.
Absolutely.
As long as you're not in the elevator for the entire duration, you know?
Arguably, it's still funny.
I completely understand, respect, and admire your points. And I do have actors that sort of fit that bill. Personally, I will disagree with Jack Black and Will Ferrell from that point. But the point stands.
Yes.
And I get what you're driving at.
And honestly, the reason why those two names came up was because of the exact scene that you just referenced. Because that is exactly what I mean.
But put Jack Black in Anchorman versus Jack Black in Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah, I don't need to watch him the whole time.
Nope.
Like, it's fine.
But School of Rock.
School of Rock.
But again, bringing us back
I actually kind of like Gulliver's Travels, to be honest.
It's not terrible, but it's not as funny as we're...
It's okay.
Yeah. Bringing us back to the movie that we're actually talking about. These were heavy hitters that had to share the screen time with 5 other mains, and then each one of their
5 mains and 5 sides, all of which were legendary.
Yeah, I mean, the sides were like Maggie Smith was a side.
Yeah,
like,
Maggie Smith. Maggie Smith arguably got about 15 minutes of screen time between the 12 actors in this film that totally dominated.
But like they all knocked it out for just you've got 2 minutes to make us laugh, and you know
then we're moving on.
You crammed in 15 minutes of laughs in those 2 minutes.
Nobody failed.
No.
Even Richard Narita, who we didn't even bring up when we were bringing up the cast. Richard Narita plays Willy Wang. His lines were phenomenal. And, he got a couple minutes of screen time altogether. And still, every single joke landed with a home run.
Yeah, because he kind of played the straight man to...
Sidney Wang.
Yeah, who was just crazy. I wonder if it was intentional to include an actor who was actually Asian.
Playing an American?
Yeah, with,
I think it was...
I would argue that it was 100%
I think it was definitely intentional. I think the reason it was intentional was, like I said, everybody's side was there to tear down...
It was the foil.
The caricature of the main.
Like Tropic Thunder, where they had those like riffs back and forth. Like, what do you mean, you people?
Yes,
exactly.
Exactly.
That.
I don't think it was so tone deaf, even though it was a racist character. Like, again, every side was there to tear down the original, right? The hot blonde bombshell was there to tear down the overly masculine film noir type detective.
Maggie Smith was there to tear down the Sherlock Holmes, who was this brilliant detective and yet missed all of the clues.
Just infallible, right? Yeah. Like, they were absolutely there to tear down the caricature.
So, I'm sure there's probably a few more, stones we can overturn here. We talked about the writing. We talked about the quippiness.
Yeah.
One thing I would probably add just real quick is I feel like I would not add creativity if this movie came out after Clue, but before. And the fact that, like, they are so explicit and, again, I hate this term, but meta about the source material that they're riffing. I thought it was really fucking creative.
Absolutely.
The writing was bang on.
Absolutely.
Bang on.
Mm-hmm. Mark, what were you going to say?
Yeah, Mark. What were you going to say?
I don't know. What was I going to say?
You were setting me up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's me setting you up.
Yeah.
When I don't have anything to say, I set someone else up. Makes me look good at what I do.
You were setting me up for one thing in particular. One thing that I am famous for bringing up in
necrophilia?
Every single episode. Necrophilia.
Yeah. How do you feel about it?
Tacky.
It's real.
So tacky.
Oh my God.
It is pretty tacky.
I can't believe that they made a necrophilia joke.
It's unbelievable.
That Maggie Smith delivered.
I know.
Wendy Darling thinks it's tacky.
Me. Wendy Moira Angela Darling.
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Don't you
sorry.
dare disrespect Maggie Smith.
Oh my God, dude. I felt like the humor felt modern, which makes me feel out of touch because I didn't know that people could laugh 40 years ago.
They didn't.
They didn't?
They didn't. No.
Okay, yeah.
This movie was made sort of as an experiment to see, okay, we're just going to throw a whole bunch of shit at a wall and see if in 40 years this is funny.
Turns out it is.
It is, yeah. No, they hit the target, but...
I wish most of them were still alive.
I really just thought it was just
in 76, this was not a comedy. I actually believe this was pretty much a drama. I think it was like akin to like The Piano.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, it was just like wooden teeth and constipation.
Yeah, and a touch of dysentery.
Yep.
Wait, are you saying you're constipated with wooden teeth?
Well,
I feel like that would give you dysentery.
I mean, shitting wooden teeth would definitely give you dysentery.
Is that what I'm doing wrong?
That's what you're doing wrong.
All right.
That's why you have blood in your stools.
God damn it.
Stop putting those teeth in there, man.
I told you that picture was just for you. Now everyone's seen it.
I
Listen, Instagram is a very enticing option for me, okay? I want followers, and when I see an asshole full of teeth, wooden teeth to boot, I'm going to post it.
I'm clicking on that link.
asshole full of teeth.
Asshole full of teeth.
God. Wooden teeth? Or is that too...
No, that's too specific. They've got to be able to branch out.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Ivory teeth.
Yep.
Metal teeth.
Oh, yeah.
Like Jaws. I don't know. Okay, so...
Asshole full of metal teeth. Chomp, chomp, motherfucker.
I ain't
I feel
getting
like I've
bites.
seen that movie.
I've seen that movie, too.
Those teeth aren't biting me. I'm just saying. Okay, so... I could think of a million other things that I liked about this movie, but they all fall under the category of like the writing and the humor and the delivery.
Yeah.
Outside of those things, I did feel like let me ask you something.
Buckle up, Jackson.
How did you feel about the cinematography?
Honestly, it was brilliant. It was. This movie came out in 76. Clearly, it was set between the 50s and 60s. All of the cars were classics from the 50s, maybe even earlier. The architecture was clearly from like the 1800s. I mean, this was a very old house.
It was Xanadu.
Yeah. Yeah. So the cinematography in this movie was so clever and so decisive and so meticulous. I loved it because every scene was shot with intent, purpose, and focus. The entryway where two characters are walking up to the door and then suddenly stop and something's wrong. And they cut to the next shot and there's footprints on the floor where they're supposed to be standing when the gargoyle falls off the house and kills them.
Actually, one cool aspect of that, again, from like a cinematography aspect, is like the shot is framed more or less in the door frame, and the characters walk up, and then they both jump to the side out of the frame before the calamity comes down from above, which I thought was kind of creative.
Yeah, and you see the classic shot of the murderer slowly using their gloved hands to position the murder weapon. You see the entryway, the foyer, where Sir Alec Guinness opens the door and says, "Please, let me shut the door." And then shuts the door the wrong way with the door gaping wide open, and you see this wide frame shot. Them walking up the staircase, and clearly the camera was off of the staircase because you see the entire banister as they come up. So honestly, the cinematography in this was an homage to older films, and it was indicative of the time period that this movie was set in, not the time that it was released. Because in the time that it was released, they had the I mean, this movie came out a year before Star Wars. Clearly, the technology existed for them to have amazing special effects and cinematography, but they used the cinematography skills and techniques of older generations of film, and they used it so perfectly and so poetically and so decisively. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah.
Can we just like appreciate the fact though that like if that wasn't the case, right? If they decided to not do that, I have full confidence that Maggie Smith could fly down a whole fucking trench and then shoot a laser down a small thermal exhaust port no bigger than a womp rat.
It's just like bullseying womp rats back home.
I mean, it's 2 meters no bigger than a womp rat.
Yeah.
And, destroying the space station that is going to bring terror and destruction to the galaxy.
Yeah.
I mean, we
ISS.
all saw that coming.
Yeah.
Right? And then they decided at the last minute to sort of like pivot and do the cinematography a little bit different. But let's be honest, Maggie Smith would have pulled it off.
Yep.
Yep, the essence was still there. Okay, so let's switch a little bit. What did we not like? I mean, the only thing that I didn't like was the outdated representations.
Yep.
Now, I still privately, nobody saw me, giggled. I still felt that the humor was still effective, but the depictions are very dated. They don't hold up to today's modern lens. They come out today, they're going to be... We've already... The horse is properly dead.
It can translate into cringe humor.
Yes.
Right? It's Michael Scott. But, as we've examined it a little bit more, I kind of wonder, again, we had made that point earlier about how, like, each person's plus one is there almost explicitly to tear them down and to sort of reveal the flaws in the trope that is each of the main 5 detective characters. The blonde bombshell, Peter Falk's plus one, she is there to reveal the cracks in his overt masculinity, right? He is the man's man who's sitting there drinking coffee and whiskey and, he's got a...
dressing and drag in gay bars.
And got a 36 at his hip, and she is there to sort of tear that down and reveal, like, oh no, this guy's actually gay and effeminate. He just doesn't like to show that.
Right.
Maggie Smith's husband, the Sherlock Holmes archetype, is...
secretly a moron.
Yeah, he's not only secretly a moron, but also, like, gives off this air of somebody who has sort of unlimited wealth and power and influence and is this sort of effete high society type, and he is actually none of those things, right? He's actually kind of crass, and he doesn't have any money, and he's a poor investor, and he's actually kind of stupid. All of the characters have this, but to your point about the...
You're talking about Wang's character?
Wang's character, his plus one, his adopted son, who is Japanese, is there. I kind of wonder if the racist depiction of Sidney Wang as a white person playing a racist Asian caricature was not as tone-deaf as we might interpret it today. It does in a lot of ways, like sort of tears that caricature down and sort of reveals it for what it is. In some ways, I kind of wonder if the inclusion of that character is important because you need it to be present in order for it to be deconstructed.
I think so, because like his plus one, they actually used an Asian actor, and they didn't burden that actor with any stereotypes. He's just a normal dude.
Just like a pretty average Asian American guy.
Yeah, at one point you see him in their room working out, and he's wearing a USC t-shirt.
Yeah.
Doesn't have an accent.
He
is in no way
a
stereotype.
Right.
So
and the things that he says and does in his interactions with his adopted father, quote unquote, really do sort of reveal that caricature for what it is in the same way that the others do. So actually kind of interesting. I'm glad that we're talking about this the way that we are, because I feel like our initial interpretation was it was a very like tone-deaf inclusion that they thought would be gimmicky and funny in 1976. But I'm kind of actually, I feel like changing my tone a little bit, and maybe it was like a really intentional and well-placed caricature that they were trying to deconstruct over the course of the movie.
And part of me wonders if Capote did it for shock value.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I mean, it was Willie, the plus, his name was Willie, right?
Willie Wang.
Did not have an accent. He had an American accent. There was really no stereotypes whatsoever applied to him. So, like, the more we kind of talk about it, like you were saying, I think that maybe Detective Wang's character was meant to be a white guy playing an Asian stereotype that was meant to be weighted against his counter, his plus one.
Much in the same way of, like, Robert Downey Jr.
in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like, the audience was in on the joke, and everybody in the movie was in on the joke. Like, there were no secrets about the joke. Yeah, it's funny, the more we discuss this, I really feel like that may have been the case. I don't want to, like, stake my reputation that was the case, but just how fundamental of a role those plus ones played in the revealing of the nature and the sort of, like, absurdity. Exactly, that's a great word. Absurdity of those detective characters. It makes me think that was the reason why they decided to play Wang in that way.
Yeah, it's also revealed that Sidney Wang is the illegitimate child of Lionel Twain.
Who's white.
Who's a white guy. So, at the very least, Sidney Wang is half Caucasian.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is interesting. I don't know if I'd stake my reputation on it, but I'm glad that we sort of, like, circled to this, because I feel like every time I've watched this, I've always just kind of been like, ooh.
Right.
But
there's enough batter to make a cake here.
Yeah, I think, if there's any element of truth in what we're discussing, I think it's actually, like, in some ways kind of refreshing to know that, like, people were that perceptive in 76 that they could cobble this together to make that statement. Like, this caricature of the East Asian detective solving crime times, but is constantly throwing out like super and overt racist comments or deliveries, whatever it happens to be, is something that we can take pot shots at. In the same way that we can take pot shots at the film noir.
And it would make sense, too.
Detective.
You know, this movie was so witty, mile-a-minute jokes at every single thing. I do find it difficult to think that they could be so tone-deaf in this regard. And again, maybe you're right. Maybe we're feeling uncomfortable and we're trying to find excuses to not feel uncomfortable. But I think your point, Jackson, the inclusion of the USC shirt, everything that they wore in this movie was intentional. That was an intentional choice. I can definitely see that being just evidence of that.
Yeah.
But okay, anyway, other things that we didn't like?
Honestly, the only thing that made me look a different way was the depiction of Sidney Wang, just because of what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, it made me uncomfortable. When Sidney Wang's character was revealed on screen, all three of us very uncomfortably looked at each other and we're like, that's Peter Sellers, right? Like, I'm not imagining, that's a white guy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Moving on. Let's see where this goes. But I think that was the only thing about this film that I genuinely didn't like.
Yep. And I think it's fair that we can still read it as we're coming to, you know, that they were aware of what they were doing and it was meant for the gag, and still be uncomfortable with the jokes that were made at that character's expense, you know? I think both things can be true.
But that's why we call ourselves the Ultra-Crepidarians, right?
Yes.
Because we don't know shit about shit.
Nope.
So
well, I know everything.
We like to wax philosophic about things that we don't know about, but Mark knows a lot about.
Yes.
I know so much about so many things. Like, I can't even list them off how many things I know.
Yeah.
Like, I tried counting one time. I ran out of fingers.
He even used my fingers.
Yeah.
I have to unzip to count to 11.
Got
You have to use your one ball.
Yeah.
how many pinkies you got?
None.
No pinkies.
No pinkies.
You got 8 fingers?
Nope, I have 10 fingers. I just don't have any pinkies.
Huh. Interesting.
That is a joke from the movie.
Which you will enjoy later.
God damn it. Perfect metric. Pinkies.
Oh.
It's not on the table anymore. No one can take it.
No, he took it.
There are no pinkies.
Son of a bitch.
Okay. So are we going to move into quotes? Because I can't think of anything else I didn't like.
Yeah.
Fucking do it.
All right. Who's going to lead us off?
I'll start. So I have 5 quotes.
Are we still rounding up to 7?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have 7
7
quotes.
quotes. Got it. Okay.
The first one is legitimately like in the first couple minutes of the movie. David Niven's character is at a payphone calling the house that they are about to attend, and the line goes dead, and he looks at Maggie and he says, I could have sworn I heard someone snip the wire. And she says, what did it sound like? He says, snip.
So dumb. So funny.
So my next quote is from Sidney Wang's character, and I'm going to disclaimer this by saying that Sidney Wang's character is portrayed by a white man and has a very thick, exaggerated, and racially insensitive accent. But for the integrity of the movie and the integrity of the context in which these lines are delivered, I'm going to deliver this in the accent that is portrayed in the film.
You've been warned.
So Sidney Wang's character has a lot of these little one-liners, these little, like, proselytizing prophecies, and it's very akin to fortune cookie wisdom.
Yeah. Or like the Confucius says jokes.
Yes. Yep. And he says, big house, like man married to fat woman, hard to get around.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It's not wrong.
He's not wrong. It's offensive in so many ways. My next line is from Perrier, who's just ingested the supposedly poisoned wine that he is very confident is not actually poisoned.
And they're just downed.
Yeah, he just drains the glass and immediately starts choking like he's been poisoned, and everyone freaks out. And he goes, no, my wine is not poisoned. It's just a bad year.
Son of a...
Because he's simultaneously like...
He's only concerned about the food.
Yeah, he's a bad detective, but he's also like, first and foremost, like a glutton and an elitist.
Yes.
Like,
he's very focused on eating the entire time. My next line is also from Sidney Wang. So, again, you've been warned. Upon discovering the dead butler at the table, says, no pulse, no heartbeat. If condition does not change, this man is dead.
So true.
Honestly, if you continue without a pulse or a heartbeat for too long, it's not good for you. Health-wise, it's not good for you.
Yeah.
Things don't generally pick up after.
No.
Yeah.
My last quote is from Sam Diamond, Truman Capote's character, falls into the dining room with a dozen stab wounds and a butcher knife sticking out of his back. And one of the characters goes, "Oh my God, is he dead?" And he goes, "With a thing like that in his back, he's better off." I could have continued for ages. I could have come out of this with quotes. 20, 30, 40 quotes.
Okay, so I have got 2 quotes this evening. One of them is also by Mr. Wang. So, like Jackson had said, I'm gonna deliver this as it was presented. We've talked about this ad nauseum. So, the quote goes, "Questions are like athlete's foot. After a while, I can't. I went straight fucking Russian. I went straight fucking Russian.
God, you're
what is
so
going
Russian.
On? I always go back to Russian. You know what? Just fucking leave all this in. Questions are like athlete's foot. After a while, they're very annoying." It's fucking hilarious.
Says Ivan.
Says Ivan. Ivan can say it. You know, Mr. Wang can say it. It doesn't matter. It's a hilarious line. Okay. Questions are like athlete's foot. After a while, they're very annoying. I'm gonna use that.
That's pretty great.
I'm going to use that in my life.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that is definitely one that you could just sort of employ.
I can hear De Niro saying it too. Questions are like athlete's foot. After a while, they're very annoying.
Very annoying. That's so good. Okay, second one. So this line shows up at the end when we're revealing all the various different identities of the killer. And at this point, the killer is a woman. I forget everything that kind of went around it, but
the butler is revealed to actually be the daughter of Lionel Twain.
But this is like the 3rd reveal in a series of like 5 reveals, none of which bear fruit.
And It's still Alec Guinness.
Pretending to be a woman.
Yeah, he does this, like, cute little thing with, like, his hat, and, like, the camera angle, like, shifts up, and, like, Alec Guinness actually looks effeminate in that, like, angle with that expression with the hat turned down just a little bit. And, like, it actually kind of works for a second. But the French detective, played by Coco, does this bit where he's, like, talking to the murderer at this point. I forget which fake identity, but it's a female identity. And he makes the remark, "As a man, you're barely passable. As a woman, you're a dog." So shift in whatever fucking accent you want in there, make it offensive. I don't know. That fucking line is so hilarious.
Oh, it's so good.
And I also want to use that in my real life. However, I feel like
you'd have to be selective with your target.
I will be punched.
You could just go right for like a Borat accent, like as a man,
you are
very passable. But as a woman, you are a dog.
You are a dog. You are a dog. God damn it.
Walken would do great, too. As a man, you're barely passable.
Barely passable.
But as a woman,
you're a dog.
You're a dog.
Well, he would sit on it, you know, it's a, as a man, you're barely passable. As a woman, though, you're a dog.
You gotta really chew those consonants.
You know? Okay. So, you got any quotes, Colin? Probably not.
No. I don't have any quotes.
All right, I got more quotes than you.
So 7.
We'll see you next week. Yes, no. I have more than 0, which is to say I have 7.
Yes.
Okay, this is the film noir type played by Peter Falk, Detective Diamond, speaking to Peter Niven's character, the effete...
David Niven's character.
There's
already enough Peters.
There's so many fucking Peters. Speaking to David Niven's character, the effete Englishman, and he goes, "Now, you're not my kind of cop, but you're smart, and you smell good." I love the fact that factors into whether or not he is a, like, trustworthy and effective officer of the law.
That's one that I want to use in my daily life.
You smell good, son.
Be like, hey, you're not my kind of cashier, but you're smart, and you smell good.
You can use that anywhere.
Anywhere. Insert profession here.
Okay, this line delivered by Peter Sellers' character, Sidney Wang. So, again, disclosures as given by
Mark and myself.
Mark and Jackson previously. This was him interacting with his son, Willie Wang. And Willie Wang says, "I don't hear nothing. What do you hear?" And he says, "A double negative and a dog." Which I've wanted to say on occasion, right? Like when I don't hear nothing. Okay, so you hear something, right? Like,
so what do you hear?
The next interaction is just the tail end of a very hilarious interaction between Perrier and his chauffeur, Marcel. We've established that Perrier is a glutton and he's obsessed with his food. He's getting on Marcel for not buying him the correct things at a shop. And at a point, Marcel says, "Oh, this is bad. I feel it in my bones." And at that point, Perrier gets very cross with him and says, "Your buns? Where are the buns? Give me the buns." And he says, "No, the buns in my body. The buns in my body." Fucking so good.
Fescons!
The last line is my absolute favorite line in the movie. I fucking love this. I want to rewind it to fucking... We don't have to rewind anymore. I don't know why I said that. This is not a Betamax. I do not have to rewind this movie. But I do want to skip back to this scene just to watch it again. But it's right when Peter Falk's character pulls up with his plus one, who's his secretary. Keep in mind, she is obsessed with him. She is constantly getting him to try to...
Oh, she's infatuated.
Be in love with her. Like, that's all she wants. It's very tense, and danger is on the horizon, right? So she's scared, and she says, "Oh, give me a kiss." And he says, "I don't kiss." And she goes, "Oh, just this once, Sam, please." And he goes, "I don't like kissing. Now leave me alone." I don't like kissing. Now leave me alone.
I don't know if I will use that line in my personal life.
So good.
If the situation offers itself, I will not hesitate.
To kiss?
Yes.
And that's all I've got, even though, like Mark, I could have gone on for
for
days
ages.
and days and days. Okay, so are we learned and are we ready to riggedy-raggedy rate?
Yes.
Let's do it. So, on that note, while I try to buy time, I'm going to go ahead and ask someone else what their rating is.
All right. I will go ahead and buy some time for Mark while I come up with my rating. And unlike Mark, I am not going to pass the baton. I'm going to sit here and confidently spin a yarn while I use my mental faculties to... Okay, so I got it.
I'm going to give this movie an 8.1.
Oh, did you just jump in there? Did you just take it?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to give this movie an 8.1. I didn't have all of it flushed out, but I thought it'd be funny if I cut you off.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me get this.
I should have fucking used pinkies. Shut my mouth and use pinkies.
An 8.1, Butler close.
Solid. So I'm going to jump back in and give this an 8.4. Bed Scorpions.
Ooh, okay.
That actually had crossed my mind.
All right. Enough time has been bought. I'm going 8.5 moose eyes.
Oh, yes.
Actually also crossed my list. But I'm actually really disappointed that I didn't think of Men from Brussels.
See, I was thinking dog tongues.
That crossed my mind too.
There's so many good ones.
Okay, so is there anything else we need to rate this on?
Well, there could be.
I think there's one thing.
Oh, are you talking about the scene score?
Scene score.
I keep saying it gets better each time, but the Mark getting the at the end, that's something.
It's the cherry on top.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Is that what a cherry sounds like?
Once you make the perfect ice cream, all that's left is to drop a berry on it. Cherries are berries.
Cherries are berries.
Cherries are
technically.
berries.
I just
I feel like that's a band name.
cherries are berries.
Cherries are
It's like
berries.
Tears for Fears, only fruity.
Are grapes berries?
I feel like cherries are berries. Like their whole thing. They're a Tears for Fears cover band, but their lyrics are all like obvious but explicit corrections on daily things.
Yeah.
Cherries are berries,
Water's wet.
water is wet.
You know?
There are more hydrogen atoms in a single water molecule than there are stars in the solar system.
There are more chickens than people.
Poop is icky.
Yes, Mark. You've definitely caught on to what we're trying to say here. Poop is icky.
Poop is icky. That's a good
Icky
track.
poo.
Icky. Well, let's not go too far with it.
Oh, okay.
Let's not go too far.
Yeah, that was my bad.
Poop is icky. There's a line. You crossed it.
I often do.
Poo?
Yes.
Me too.
Once a day. Metamucil.
Sometimes.
Brought to you by Metamucil. We are no longer talking about poo or the fiber necessary to create regular poos.
We'll save that for later.
Yeah, we might. Today, though, I would like to thank the respondents we had to the familiarity survey.
Hey.
Yeah, you people are fucking gems. Well done.
Thank
you. Good
you.
on you.
Yeah.
The average familiarity with this movie is a 0.9 out of 10.
Oof.
Not great.
Not unexpected, though.
So one person,
So it's not,
kind of.
let's say, like a 10%-ish familiarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
9% familiarity. Our average rating was an 8.3. That is really fucking high.
Yeah.
We really rated the shit out of this movie. The scene score, with that low familiarity and our average score is 8.3, is a 9.2.
Yes.
That could be the highest scene score we've ever had.
I'm fairly confident that that is the highest scene score we've ever gotten.
9.2.
It might be the highest. Who knows? Like, I can't.
I think Goon got like a 9.0, but like 9.2, that's way up there.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed this movie so much and had never even heard of it. Like, this is what the scene score is about.
Yeah, honestly.
So good. Ready?
Do we have anything else that we need to cover?
Well, I was sitting around the old house the other day, and my phone went off. Wasn't sure what it was. Turns out it was something called an email.
Electronic mail.
We just got an email.
We are going to get sued so fucking bad because of Jackson's antics.
Well, that's fine. Bring it. We just got an email. We just got an email. I think it's different enough.
He was getting pleasure out of that.
Yeah,
did you hear that?
I did.
So this email came to us from one Mr. Alex.
Alex.
Yeah.
No last name, just Alex.
Yep.
Now, is it pronounced Alex or Alux?
I think it's Alex.
I think it is Alex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Alex.
Hello, three men. After talking with my good pal Mark Amadeus Culp, Jackson, is that your real name?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I have decided to give my 2 cents on an episode-based power ranking since I enjoyed the banter between you guys so much when it comes to the order your names are said in fan emails.
Thank you, Alex.
Alex is very, very considerate.
Yeah.
Generous with the comment.
Yeah.
Compliments.
I would say that Alex, I would say that he places second on my list of favorite emails.
Oh, why?
Whoa.
Why would you say that?
Yeah, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of that in a minute.
Ooh.
So he continues with, I figured this definitely wouldn't stir up any controversy.
Really?
That is accurate. That is accurate. It
Well,
will not.
I'm still okay. Let's keep going.
No, it will not. With that being said, this episode's rankings are as follows. I presume
Mark number 1, right?
that this episode he is referring to an earlier episode.
More than likely.
Which episode? Why?
Yes.
Why didn't you specify, Alex?
Yeah.
Well,
This is probably Fools Rush In.
yeah, for sure.
Could be Reign Over Me though.
Reign Over Fools.
Yeah, Reign Over Fools.
That rush into enemies at the gates.
Guys,
Yeah.
stop being such a goon.
Mine enemies at the gates.
Mine enemies at the gates. It was very German. Okay, Colin, number 1. I completely agree.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
Won
can't
me
say-
over when you called Matt Ostrowski an asshole and said you wanted to fight him. You know what? I aim to please. And you know what? I will fight every fucking Matt Ostrowski out there if it means I remain number 1.
Wow, let's be popular because of violence.
Yeah.
Okay? Wow.
Yeah. Way to
sorry.
set an example to the kids.
It's called bullying, Mark, and it's very cool right now.
Yeah, the only bullying that I want to hear is one where I get on top and I just start bullying everyone else.
You want to be on top?
Well,
This got very sexual. Very quick.
man, I walked myself right into that one. Okay, so number 2 is Mark, right?
Jackson is number 2.
What?
Wow.
Which is another
Could have been worse.
term for poop.
Yes.
Yes,
it is, Alex. Number 2.
I could relate with you that you hated the love angle of the movie and also felt bad that you were left as the last name in the email order.
Yeah, except you didn't place me at the top to counteract the fact that I was left at the bottom of the pile.
Sure, you gotta just move you up one
You
position.
just kind of like kicked me up a little bit of a notch there.
Like stay in your lane. You know?
Yeah.
Know where you're at.
Way to boost my ego just enough to be insecure.
We
there.
recognize that you've been working at this Church's Chicken for 11 years. We're not going to make you a manager, but would you like to be assistant to the manager?
Yeah, that sounds great, Alex.
You know what? You're going to be a team lead.
Ooh, nothing would satisfy me more than being a big, fat, stinking number 2.
Wow. Well,
Mark
sounds like it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Mark is number 3.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
Which we've established number 3 is that's either sweat or puke.
Yeah.
Because he can't play hockey or fight.
Wow.
You don't know.
It sounds
that
like Mark. It
for
sounds
sure.
like Alex is about to find out whether or not Mark can throw hands.
Yeah.
He can. He can. I got the left one. I got the right one. I
What
got
about
them
the
mixed
middle
up.
one?
It doesn't matter.
Fair.
The little punch.
The
Or
middle punch.
Where's that coming from?
I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count.
Oh God. See, I don't play hockey, so I'm not sure where this. It's been established. God damn it. You know what? This is crap. I didn't sign up for this just to be number 3.
He didn't sign up to be number 3.
I gave up.
Allegedly.
2.5, maybe? Can I be 2.5? Can I be right underneath you, Jackson?
You want to be right underneath?
He wants to be
I
right
thought you wanted to
underneath
be
you.
on top.
Well, now I want to be just like a you know what?
It's
a hard fall.
He's
It's
a
hard
soft power bottom. Please keep up the good work. I love listening to you. He's probably talking about me there. And
You know what? He probably is number 1.
and look forward to your next episode.
Do you?
Alex.
Do you, Alex?
God damn it. You know what? As I recall that email, I was number 1. Was that right?
Maybe on your phone.
Oh, I had it upside down.
Oh, that'll do it, because you were at the bottom.
To be fair, smartphones are not well oriented.
No.
There's just, there's no way to know which way you're
So
picking
many
it up.
angles.
Right.
So, yeah, if anyone else wants to chime in and, set the record straight, Mark's on top. He's not he could be a power bottom. If he's a bottom, he's a power bottom. Or he's, you know what? Just, come on, guys. I need some help here. Somebody reach out and help me. Help me.
He needs somebody. Not just
Somebody
anybody.
to love.
Okay, so
We learned, Ern.
I think so.
All right. Well, that is all for the All Crap Review. Thank you for listening. If you have ideas for movie reviews, you can fill out our movie suggestion form. You can get to that on our website, or we can send it to you directly. If you email us at 3, that is the number 3, meninaBasement@gmail.com. If you get to that form, you can fill it out, and then every 5th movie, we will review a listener suggestion. Also, if you want to take the familiarity survey, you can get to that on our website. That's tmaab.podbean.com. TMAAB stands for 3 Men and a
Basement!
Or you can email us directly at 3menandabasement@gmail.com. Please make sure that you check out our tour, which is headlining Fropicken. And we thought that was going to be a very innocuous band. It turns out that in Germany they're known as Fraupicken, and it's
very different.
fucking nasty. Just nasty. Also, Asshole Full of Teeth, which is a bit of, they're not a Primus cover band, but they're inspired by the same whatever fucking horrific shit inspired Primus.
It'll nip you.
Finally, Cherries Are Berries, which is our Tears for Fears cover band, and they will correct you on all of your sort of nuanced and pedantic shit.
Actually?
Actually, Cherries Are Berries.
Yeah.
Could be like a lead album, actually.
I think it might be, yeah. They're sort of fresh to the scene. I'm not as familiar, which is why I'm so stoked.
Are they fresh, or were they sitting in a cold storage for a while?
Actually, they were freshly picked.
It's true.
From the peninsula.
Actually.
You can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you find your podcasts. And until then, I am Colin McLeod.
Mark up.
Action Jackson.
And we will see you in cyberspace.
Wow, wow.
Fascons!